Hello, I'm Dr. Sandal, founder of Atma Clinic. The modern medical system is falling apart. To fix it, we need to radically change how we think about health, illness, and the practice of medicine. Welcome to the show, Talking Shift, where we discuss radical new perspectives on health, illness, and the practice of medicine. Today I'm joined by my friend Jeric Toney.
Yep.
He's a doctor of chiropractic and the owner of Peak Performance here in Lawrence, Kansas.
Yep. How you doing, Dr. Sandal?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here and talk about how the health industry needs to change.
Yes. Yeah. Everyone I think feels that.
Yeah.
And us lucky few who are on the edge of medicine already and trying to kind of push the boundaries, I'm just excited for us to get louder.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? People need that education. And I would say we owe a debt of gratitude to the podcast culture. People are starting to get more education on this.
Yeah, very much.
Today, I'd like to really dig into what makes your guys' practice unique.
Yeah, so, we tell our patients all the time we're not the standard chiropractic practice. And usually when I'm talking with a patient and going over kind of what we need to do to help them out, the first thing I say is, if I'm doing my job, I don't need to see you all the time.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
right.
And because I think every healthcare professional should have that as their goal. You help the patient with what they have going on, you educate them, and you inspire them to take hold of who they are and what they want to be, and you motivate them to take that and run. And if we're able to do that, guess what? You're going to be able to help yourself more than I can help you in the office.
Do you guys work at all with insurance?
So we do take one insurance right now, and I think we'll hang with that for a little while, but
and I don't want to distract too much.
Yeah.
The reason I ask that is not to kind of dig into your business practices and that sort of thing, but rather to make the point that a lot of what you're describing there is a problem with incentives, right? Like you're saying, we're hanging with insurance for now.
Yeah.
It's not part of the business model of modern medicine to make people better. Right.
And we see that with health insurance reimbursement on the practitioner side. We've seen it with certain, if you're not familiar with it, there's certain codes out there that you have to bill, and insurances will say, we're going to pay you that much for this code, and it's going to be, it just dives into a whole spider web of things.
Right.
But what we've seen is that a lot of insurance companies are now saying, we're not going to cover that in your copay. So there's a limiting factor.
Shrinkflation.
Now there's this mental thing of, well, my insurance says they're not paying that part. I guess maybe I can't do it. And that's not really the case. If you're seeing a practitioner whose goal is to not see you all the time, guess what? Everything just became cheaper.
Right, that's
so
the right way to think
over
about
that hurdle. So getting you better, giving you the tools to take care of yourself, guess what? Healthcare just got cheaper.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
When we think about the collapse, the sort of slow motion collapse of our medical juggernaut here in the U.S., a lot of that is driven by bad incentives.
Yeah.
And that stems from an incorrect medical orientation philosophy.
Yeah.
Right? And chicken and egg here, right? Physicians get used to managing problems. They're like, here's a pill that'll cover this up.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, well, hang on, what happened to getting to the root of the dang thing?
Yeah.
And part of the problem is that the physicians, they have a business to run.
Right.
And then insurance on top of that tells them what they're going to get paid for, which dictates what their business can be.
Yep.
Right? And so you get stuck in this really weird system that at no point incentivizes getting people better so they don't show up.
It incentivizes them to see as many people as possible in a short time frame. I had a friend of mine who was a DO doing family medicine in a hospital and actually started his own functional medicine practice after finding out that his patients weren't getting better. And he wanted to really help people get better, and so he went through Institute for Functional Medicine, did all that, did a residency, and it's real interesting to see his perspective, and obviously probably your perspective too, is that in the hospital you're like, here's a symptom, here's what we normally do. Here's this one protocol that we do for it.
Yep. You run the algorithm.
Right. And then, but that's really, like you said, it's not getting to the root of the problem.
Yeah.
And the same can be said in chiropractic care as well. I think a lot of times there's some great practitioners that fall into the mindset of, well, this is what I do for everybody.
They get in a rut.
They get into a rut, just like and they fall into, especially, you know, if you're in an insurance model, you fall into that. This is what I have time to do. It will help them probably.
Well, and that's hard because then the rut is incentivized.
Exactly.
You know, and humans follow incentives.
Yep.
It's a golden rule, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You pay someone to do something, they're probably going to end up doing it.
They really are. Or and you see that a lot of times in all the marketing that we see towards different healthcare, towards food in our system.
Well, yeah. Don't get me started, man.
Oh, I know. We could spend days on that one. But the point of the fact of the matter is, there's not enough healthcare professionals looking at the root cause.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
So someone says, hey, I need my back cracked and I need to have it done every week. Well, why do you feel like that is the case?
Yeah, why
it's
every
not
week?
It's not a matter of, you know, that's a normal thing here. You know, it's how are you moving and what is causing you to feel like you're stuck?
Yeah.
How can we correct that movement? So how can we look beyond the symptom, which is the pain in your back, to actually correcting the movement that's causing that? Or with most people, the lack of movement.
Yeah. Well, yeah, talk about incentives, right? You know, as a society, we are incentivized mostly towards office work now.
Yeah.
You know, most people are not out, you know, going a few generations back, you know, working the fields.
Right.
Right? You know, scything wheat, throwing hay bales, you know, the works around here in Kansas. That was probably a lot of what people ended up getting up to.
Milking cows, you know, doing all that. My dad was raised on a small dairy farm, and I threw hay in high school.
That's awesome.
You know, it's just what we did, and it was very active, and then played sports. But yeah, you're seeing now in a society, people are, here's a screen. Sit here and watch that.
Right.
They sit in a desk job 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and you know you can't exercise yourself out of a sedentary life. If you're still spending 8 to 10 hours a day not doing anything, you know it's going to take a lot to get you out of that hole. And you know, I worked a desk job. At 31, 32 years old, I left a desk job to go back to school. I sold my house, quit my job, and went back to school to help people.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Because I started to find that active life again, and I was feeding on that, and I wanted to help other people be active.
Can I ask more about that time period?
Yeah.
What created that shift in your thinking? Was there an event and you're like, man, I got a 180 that's...
You know, there was several things adding up to it. You know, I was always active, you know, playing baseball, doing all that stuff, and then, you know, the desk job really just kind of shrunk me down, and I was stuck in a certain mode, and you know I was always lifting and doing that, but just not feeling real invigorated. And honestly, I got into boxing, and really something clicked with that. You know, I just you know, everything happened from, you know, weight loss to building muscle again to, you know, just being active and wanting more.
You got that right hormonal stimulus again.
Exactly.
Like, whoa, there it is.
Yeah. Time. And then so I found myself sitting at the desk going, yeah, I can't do this anymore. I cannot. And I had always had an interest of chiropractic school. I'd had some friends that had been through it. And so I was always interested in it. And it helped me when I was playing baseball. And so, you know, the thought came up, you know, I had heard someone speak that said, you know, if money wasn't an issue, if you could do anything, what would you do? And I was like, you know, I think I'd go back to school to be a chiropractor. And at that time, you know, I was exposed to what's called a traditional chiropractor, where they just adjust you and you feel pretty good and head on. And so I went to school with that fully thinking that's how I was going to practice. I was going to see people, I was going to adjust them, and you know, we kind of joke that it's cracking necks and cashing checks. You know, that's what you hear in school. You know, but going through the process of school, and I think I was lucky at the time that I was there. There were some certain, you know, groups coming on campus and different, you know, seminars and certifications that were made available.
Cool.
That, you know, it started to morph, you know, that idea in my mind. And I had some really great instructors, and one introduced me to functional medicine. Awesome. Which completely, you know, changed my thought process on the supplement world. I thought that was a gimmick. I was like, oh, that's just a way for people to make money.
Sure.
And then when you're presented with, here's the labs, here's how I treated them nutritionally with some supplementation, here's their labs following up, I was like, okay.
Yeah, like there's some science here.
There's another piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And, so, there's a bigger portion to just, adjusting. There's affecting how the muscles move as well, and doing the soft tissue work that we do, that we specialize in. And then teaching the person how to move in a better pattern.
Kind of a rehab orientation. Right. How do we stop you from falling into that same pattern that caused the injury?
Yep, exactly. And then, the nutritional aspect comes into play. It plays a huge part. I mean, if you have chronic tension and you're coming in saying, oh man, my neck just feels tight all the time. Well, okay, number one, how are you moving through the day? How are you breathing throughout the day?
Sure, absolutely.
It's huge. But also, are you hydrated?
Yep.
Most people are not. Right. I mean, they'll be like, yeah, I'm hydrated. I drink like 36 ounces of coffee a day.
Coffee.
Well, what about water? Well, there's water in the coffee. Yeah, we're going to need to work on that a little bit. And then also looking at easy things like magnesium. That's a huge, so many people are deficient on magnesium.
There was a study that came out of the Stanford School of Public Health a little while ago that showed that 98% of Americans don't get enough magnesium in their diet. Holy crap, 98%?
Well, you think of what that does. Okay, basic cellular level, what's it do? It helps us use ATP. So that's energy. It helps our mitochondria produce energy. Well, why are we having all these mitochondrial issues that we are in society? But then on the brain level too, the brain is a huge user of magnesium.
Absolutely.
And so brain fog, not sleeping well, anxiety, tension. Of course, there's other nutritional aspects to that. But that's how you look at getting someone better. So number one, get them moving. Get them moving pain-free. Make sure they're fueling the body correctly so that they can do what they want to do. And you want to talk about incentivizing. The best question you can ask a patient is, why are you here today? Why do you want your low back to stop hurting?
For what purpose? It hurts and that's a bad thing, obviously.
I want to pick up my grandkid. I want to play catch with my son. These things that they're not able to do because the pain is there. So you got to dig deep and find that reason. And I'm sure on your level too, why are you coming in here, wanting to change your type 2 diabetes? Well, because I don't want to end up on dialysis and I want to be able to have an active life with my family, okay? So it's dig into that why. As practitioners, we have to have our why as to why we're doing it, and we got to establish, I think, what's the patient's why.
I love that. One of the things that we need to shift in the way that people think about our medical system, the way that people think about health, illness, and medicine as a big picture, is they need to be engaged in that. They need to be thinking about, well, what do I want out of this? I think people have become so accustomed to the modern medical system not really solving problems, not really being useful. There's this sort of cultural concept that, well, I have a doctor. It's like, well, why do you have a doctor? I don't know, I have to do annual physicals, and I have high blood pressure. So you just show up to your doctor, and what do you guys do? You just talk about those things? And then he gives me a pill. It's like, well, okay, hit the pause button. What do you want? Don't worry about what the modern medical system tells you is possible or suggests subconsciously is possible and isn't possible. What do you want? And you're right. If you get people really thinking about that, they're going to say, well, I don't want to be on this medicine. Right? I don't want to have my gut aching all the time. I don't want to have pain in my lower back. So that's where we want people to be thinking. We want them to be thinking about that goal, that incentive. And I think our mainstream medical system has kind of slow-rolled people. It's like that idea of boiling the frog really slowly. People are so stuck now in this place of well, my back just hurts and that's the way it is. And if I go to a doctor, they give me a pain pill that lasts for a few hours.
Muscle relaxer.
And that's it. And so they're like, well, that's not really, whatever, I guess backs just hurt. And it's like, guys, don't, we can't stop there. We have to actually be fussy and demanding about our health, right?
You have to advocate for your own health, but also realize, there's that mental thing that's going on now in society. Like you said, that, my back's just supposed to hurt. You know, I'm 40 years old, I'm 50 years old, I'm 60 years old. It's normal to have,
Man, I hate
pain.
that.
And it's not. And I tell people, and they're like, well, you know, I'm 66, I guess I just got hurt. I go, age is just a number. You got to change your thought process.
And that's
here.
literally true, right? We understand that biological age and chronological age are completely decoupled concepts.
Exactly.
And there's some correlation.
There is, yeah. But it's fine. It's getting people to believe that they don't have to hurt. You know, I had an ICU nurse come in with severe low back pain.
That's a hard job.
It is. I mean, you're talking about moving people that can't move on their own. They lift a lot. Expected to have low back pain at some point, right? She had gone in and she had gotten an injection. She had seen a physical therapist. They had done a few things, and they went down the typical medical, but still hurting. Still having leg pain and foot numbness. You know, it was getting pretty severe. And, you know, if you do your continuing education right as a healthcare professional, you should always be adding tools to your bag, right, to help people. Not just saying, well, state of Kansas says I got to have 25 hours. I'm going to go sit in this class, play on my phone for 25 hours, and then I'm going to be good to go. So one of the ones that we've done continuing ed-wise is something called the McKenzie technique.
Sure.
And the McKenzie technique was actually started by a physical therapist in New Zealand who stumbled into this by accident, but he found probably what I would say is the gold standard for treating low back disc issues, as well as even disc issues in the neck and the mid back. So we've taken that certification, and I had this nurse come in, and you know,
do you want to talk about what makes that unique for a bit? Because I bet people are interested in that.
Yeah, we can do that. So
sorry not to derail you. But just a quick aside.
Quick aside.
Because it's a cool protocol.
Yeah, so the disc is kind of your shock absorber between your vertebrae, and it is very much kind of like a water balloon in how it functions. So compression, decompression, that helps the disc stay healthy. But sometimes when we are bent forward, we add a little rotation, weight, what we do is put too much pressure on the disc, and we can get a bulge or a herniation.
You know, like squeezing a water balloon and it
pops out.
Gets bigger out here.
Yep. And you know, in most cases, you know, it's not the end of the world like everybody thinks it is. But in the McKenzie technique, what they found out is if you can figure out the direction of the injury, you can add movement in the opposite direction to help move the disc back into a centralized location and take away symptoms typically pretty quickly. And of course, every person's different. Every directional preference, as they call it, is different. And
that's a big point, right? Every single individual is different in their motion patterns, in their biological makeup. And if we are able to spend the time to think of a person as an individual, if we are incentivized to do that, rather than cracking necks and cashing checks, right? Or whatever the medical version of that is, and that sure exists.
Muscle relaxer, pain medicine, that's what they've been told, or injection. And, you know, and so, you know, going back to this ICU nurse that came in, you know, she was frustrated, thought that, oh man, I'm going to have to switch roles, I'm going to have to do something else in my career.
Well, good for her for pushing and being like, there's got to be a solution.
And so I looked at her and noticed a very obvious lateral shift of the hips, which tells us in the McKenzie technique different things. And I spent 5 minutes with her after, you know, after talking with her about everything that happened. You know, it's first appointment, it's about 45 minutes to an hour. So we go through all of that, and I said, okay, we're going to try this. And so I had her go and do something we call side glides. Pain moves up the leg, pain moves into the low back. Suddenly, pain decreases. And I'm talking in 10 minutes, and her face goes, are you kidding me? You know, I've been doing all this, and not every case goes that smoothly. You know, sometimes it takes us a while to get there. But those are the cases that, you know, refuels, you know, why you're doing it sometimes.
Well, because it's the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
And one big shift we have to think about, I want to encourage people to think about as they're approaching their health and their wellness and any illness they might have, is to find someone who has the right tools for the job. And you know it's the right tool for the job if it works.
Exactly.
Right? If it works persistently as well, you know, not just a pill to cover it up and like, okay, that's a little better. It's like, okay, but did they get to the root of the damn problem?
Right. And that's a huge part of it. And I tell people all the time, I can't build a house with a hammer, right?
Okay.
You can't. Like, I can't take one hammer, go out there and build a whole house or fix a house. I can't fix you with just an adjustment. There it is. Multiple tools. We have to be able to do this. So having someone realize that adjustment's a tool. It can be very beneficial and it can help people. But if you're not doing the exercise, you're not doing the nutrition, you're not mentally saying this is possible.
Yeah, right.
We're not going to get there. So we as practitioners have to have the tools, not only to the modalities to treat people with, but also we have to have the tools in our mindset from talking with other colleagues. How can we inspire people to run and take care of themselves and take control of their health care and be their advocate? A lot of people, there's a mental thing that we've seen with patients that they'll call and ask if we take their insurance. And we're like, no, but we have some other ways for you to get reimbursed, things like that. But there's this mental lock in there that says, I can't go there if they don't take my insurance.
Right.
And
we deal with that same thing. It's a challenge, right? People are somewhat, there's this idea of a Stockholm syndrome around the insurance medical model.
Yeah.
People go, well, I pay so much money into this system.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Right? I need to get value out of it. And it's like, brother, I got news for you. Ain't nobody getting value out of that system. No. It is a system that is designed to profit off of our suffering.
Well, and I tell people it's kind of like your car insurance now. It's there for you if you got an accident. It's there for you. But it's not there to change your tires, put new gas in your vehicle, change your oil. All the maintenance that you have to do to keep your car running, you got to do some of that as a person too.
There are two types of insurance. There's what we used to call catastrophic insurance, which is exactly what you're describing. It's like, God forbid a tree falls on me and I end up in the hospital. Like, okay, our medical system is very expensive and thank God we have surgeons and that can all be very, very useful. That's why one needs insurance. They need minimal coverage in case of a disaster.
Right.
Somehow or another, there's been this slippery slope where people start paying more in their monthly premiums, their deductible, their co-pays for the tire change.
Yeah.
And, that stuff is frankly not expensive. Right. People pay way more in their insurance premiums than they would pay, paying you or I direct cash for a product.
Yeah.
And somehow people are just really stuck in this mindset.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I pay, I was just talking to someone the other day who pays $1,200 a month for their premium for their family.
Yeah.
$1,200 a month?
Yeah.
Wow.
Unreal.
What do you get for that? And they're like, well, I have an $8,000 deductible, so nothing. I'm like,
absolutely nothing.
Why?
Yeah.
There was something challenging psychologically, culturally that happened around Obamacare. Right? Obamacare was like, it was sold to the public as this idea that we need to have broader access of health care, which is a really wonderful, noble goal, right? But if we're not thinking carefully about what that product is, we end up with something that is unsustainable and really doesn't serve its function.
Right.
Again, if people are thinking about catastrophic insurance and the sort of, I need insurance to see a mechanic to get my tires changed, which should only cost $50, but now we have to wrap that all in and we make it legally required.
Yeah.
Complications happen.
Very much. And then when you look at it too, is when we're focused more on just treating symptoms in a healthcare industry, that in itself is going to make things more expensive.
Right. Because you're not solving problems.
Exactly.
You just stack problems.
Exactly. You're stacking problems until they become bigger problems.
Yeah.
And you can see that with one of the biggest growing trends in America right now is type 2 diabetes and metabolic imbalances. So yes, okay, a medication helps them for a while, but we keep eating the processed sugar and everything else, and then what do they need? Dialysis.
Right.
Crazy expensive.
And it's also not good therapy.
No.
Like, I mean, it's better than the alternative, better than falling over.
But it's that model that's led them to something that's more expensive, thus increasing all the insurance premiums, because now you have all these people, dialysis places. There's, 2 or 3 here in town? And I guarantee you they're booked almost all of their 10 to 12 hour days.
Right.
That is not acceptable as a society.
From a societal level, it's certainly unsustainable. Right. And also for those individuals, it's horrible.
It is.
I mean, dialysis is a miserable treatment. It's, again, better than the alternative, but we really need to shift our perspective. We need to, let me say, encourage people to work on preventing. Let's deal with those problems way earlier down here. And again, it's nice to have the sort of ultra interventive things for when we do need them. God forbid there's some massive accident.
Exactly. Yeah.
But as a society and as an individual who wants to feel good, we really get a lot more bang for our buck, monetarily and quality of life wise, if we are saying, okay, what's the root of this problem and how do I solve this? If we do that early.
Right. And that's how the healthcare model should work.
Right.
We know that if I help someone, and so we have a contract with a company that we go out and we do soft tissue work, and we give them some exercises to work on their employees. They're in a very physical job, and we do that. We service like 18 locations in the state, and we go out there all the time, and they have found that preventative care saves them ton of money on workman's comp. Right?
Yeah, you solve problems, people aren't stuck on pain meds.
Exactly. Someone says, man, my shoulder's a little tight. Okay, well, let's work on that with some soft tissue work. Here's some exercises to fix it. Now their shoulder's moving better. It's more stable. They're not getting a torn rotator cuff. They're not going to work.
They're not compensating and something else goes off and something else goes off. Yeah.
So then they're also not billing the insurance industry for that. So
and they feel better.
And they feel better. Yeah. And they feel empowered because they're like, oh, I can fix this. Yeah. And I can recognize how not to do this in the future.
So why, as a society, in your opinion, is this not common knowledge? Right? Why do people go to an MD and they get a muscle relaxer rather than fixing the mechanical problem that causes that nerve pain?
You know, it sounds a little harsh, but it's the easy way out.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, I think a lot of people like the idea of, I can just take a pill and this will go away.
It's a bit of a myth. It's a bit of a sales pitch, right?
It is. And because you think about it, we know it's tough sometimes if someone hasn't been moving to get them, you know, to get over the hump and move and realize that they can move. But then when society as a whole is not getting the nutrients that they should in their everyday meal, it's even harder.
Yeah.
Because now they are more incentivized because of the dopamine they get from eating the Little Debbie snack. Because that makes them feel good.
Right. Temporarily.
It makes them feel good, but it's also feeding the inflammation in their injury even more, along with some other things. But so they have it in their mindset, but they've also been told that the medical world, or doctors out there, this will fix you.
They know. They have the toolkit. Yeah. You know, I hear this frequently.
I think they're hearing that this pill will fix them, but it's not a fix. It's just a temporary treatment.
Right.
It's not fixing what caused this.
I hear this all the time from patients who are jumping ship from mainstream medicine. And they're like, okay, hang on.
Yeah.
You know, I heard this information, I watched your podcast, or I listened to Joe Rogan, and I kind of went, okay, maybe I should think about this differently. Maybe I should try something different.
Yeah.
Because what I'm trying doesn't work. So I hear this all the time from people, and they say, well, if it worked, my doctor would have told me about it.
Yeah.
That is a huge problem in our society.
Yeah.
The idea that MDs are the holders of the finished product, the science of human health.
Yeah.
One of the things, you know, so I'm an MD, and don't get me wrong, I like MDs. I think they're compassionate, I think they're very intelligent, and they want to heal people.
Exactly, yeah.
But there's this old saying that the cage makes the beast. And so they're trying to, you know, take all these wonderful qualities and work within the system that is just
a mess.
Yeah, it just has bad incentives, right? It's just backwards. Yeah. And we know that we don't know. Scientists are always learning. They know. A good scientist will say, well, we don't know. Right? This is why the old-timey doctors, they used to say they had a practice. They're not like, hey, here's my finished shop, I'm going to do the thing. They're like, okay, I'm practicing. And it's a phrase that MDs use to humble themselves.
Well, and you know, in chiropractic school as well, you know, in the chiropractic profession, you know, there is a lot of draw from what chiropractors have done over the last 100 years. You know, they've seen trends and adjustments affecting all this, even though there's not research out there that really supports it, because it's almost impossible to do that research.
Well, that's an interesting topic we can talk about.
Well, yeah, and so, you know, there's a lot of good stuff that has come from that. But as a profession, and I see it in both sides, from the chiropractic side and the MD world, there seems to be a very tall brick wall that both of them hit. And this group will stay behind that wall, and they will, you know, just sit there and say, this is the way to do it. And, you know, the medical world says, no, this is the way that we do it.
Are they on the other side of that wall?
Well, Well, they're on the same side, just a different viewpoint.
Okay,
so like we talked about, like here's a painkiller, a muscle relaxer. That's how we fix this. On this side, here's an adjustment. That's how we fix it.
I see what you're saying.
But there's a few of us that are starting to get over the top of that wall on both sides. And recognizing, there's more we don't know and there's more we need to learn, but there's also a lot buried in the history of things that we can get a new perspective from as well. So it's having the open mindset to say, you know what, I don't know it all, but let's look for that answer and let's go back to practicing and saying, hey, we're going to work on this together. And it's not just MD and chiropractors working together, but healthcare professionals working with their patients.
Right.
And that's how people get better. You can't just sit there and say this is one-sided, saying this will fix you.
And then I'm going to work on you. I'm fond of saying, we want to understand the individual. And the individual is the person who is closest to that data, the data we need. How do you feel? We tried something, what happened? I can create hypotheses and theories and play with ideas and say, okay, based on what you told me, I think we need to expand out what we're thinking about to over here. But I need you to tell me how that works, because only you know how you feel. And so there's that partnership that happens there in healthcare.
And I'll have patients, I'll work on them for a little bit, do some soft tissue work, have them move through some movement, and I'll get up and I'll have them get up and say, I'll walk around. I'm like, now how are you feeling? And I'll be like, if you're not feeling any better, tell me. Not hurting my feelings.
And
I go, I don't expect a miracle for you to hop off this table and say, oh, I have no pain. It can happen. Doesn't happen very often, but it can. But again, it's that communication. It's that working together so that we can find what's going to really work for you.
I think we need a big shift in the mainstream medical system. A lot of physicians and patients have the sense that I go to the doctor and the doctor fixes me. And that's just not reality. It's a good sales pitch for the insurance model, right? Like, that's very seductive. It's very attractive. Like, I wish I could just go to someone and they give me a pill and boom, done.
Well, we see the commercials.
You're right.
They're dancing.
Right.
They got Giardia.
Don't get me started.
My 3-year-old sang the song the other day.
Oh, no.
And I was like, this is on. No.
Marketing works.
It does.
And this is part of the trouble with the infiltration of the practice of medicine by business. You have all these business people in the insurance and the pharma, and these guys know how to work human psychology. By God, they're good at it.
Better than anybody else.
Woo!
Yeah.
But the thing is that none of this is people don't feel better just because someone tells them to feel better. Because someone gives them a happy dance for Giardia. Right? It's like, no, we still have to do the hard science on this, guys. And that takes work. And it takes collaborative work. It takes the patient being invested. No, I can't just give them a pill and they'll be better forever. I could give them a cover-up. But that's just not good practice.
And that takes, beyond the medical office, the chiropractic office, it takes a strong community to have that available. And having places for people that are scared to exercise to go in and start feeling comfortable about it. So dietarily, there's a lot of things that can play into whether or not someone's getting better. And one of the typical questions I ask somebody that kind of knocks them off their block a little bit is, how much sugar are you consuming? How much processed food? Are you getting fibrous veggies and good quality proteins?
Well, they don't make it easy to find now.
No.
People go to the health food store, hopefully, rather than the not health food store. And like there's that saying, like, shop on the outside of your grocery store, don't go on the inside. So much of our culture is not oriented for health now. It's oriented for comfort. And that is a huge lie, right? Like I've heard before this idea that now people are pursuing as the purpose of life, the meaning of life is comfort. Oh, that's never going to work.
No, you gotta live in an uncomfortable area sometimes, even to find comfort.
Right.
And when I talk about establishing a community, and I mentioned gyms, the other side of it is the community where we get our food.
Yeah, right.
We're here right now. We're kind of researching where we want to buy some grass-fed, grass-finished beef.
We were talking earlier about magnesium deficiency.
Yep.
Why is there magnesium deficiency? Well, it's because people aren't eating local. It's because the soils are depleted of that magnesium.
Yeah, and going back, I read something a long time ago about how healthcare in America changed, or the health situation changed when farms, the cattle were all moved closer to city for convenience.
Oh, interesting.
And so they went from being raised on prairies to now they're all in feedlots because they can easily be processed that way.
Well, yeah.
And so
don't get me started on that, man. That's a whole sort of nutritional health and also ethical disaster.
It is. But on the side of it is knowing where your food comes from. So we're researching local areas. Where are we going to get that? Because we've seen that the quality in stores is terrible. The quality is just not there, and what people don't realize, going local sometimes can save a lot of money. Right.
And it
you look
sure
at
as hell is better
costs.
quality.
Yeah.
Like we just had some cilantro volunteer up in our garden. Yeah. It just showed up. We're like, hey, great, welcome.
Yeah.
Man, you taste that compared to what you buy at the grocery store. It is a world of difference. And I think anybody who has that experience of going to a local farmer for their produce or for their meats or dairy or whatever goes, hang on. Like, wow, this is really good.
This is how this is supposed to taste. Yeah, and we have a great farmers market on Saturday mornings with some great local farms that come to town, and
check it out if you haven't seen it. It is fabulous.
It is, and so there's great resources there, but there's other ones that don't come to those farmers markets that are still available to you. And just for instance, we were looking at grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Depending on how much you buy, you're looking at about an average of like $6 per pound. You'll pay $9 per pound just for hamburger grass-fed. Doesn't say grass-finished. Grass-fed at the store. So
marketing.
Yeah, marketing. And yes, it's convenient to say I'm just going to go to the grocery store and grab that rather than have it sitting in a freezer at home. You have to thaw it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's so incentivize yourself to realize that, I can get a little bit healthier by eating locally, and I help the local economy. I probably save myself a little bit of money. And it's better. There's that incentive.
So much, I think, of optimizing our health comes back to spending a little bit of extra time with it. In one sense, there's this idea of fast food. There's also fast healthcare. That's what people have fallen into. They've fallen into the mythology that you can have fast food. They fall into the mythology that you can have fast health care. But the thing is those don't work. They're very pale imitations of a fundamentally natural, human, us-oriented process.
And that's where that instant gratification comes from that we've all gotten spoiled with technology. And I think that, going back to an earlier question when you're like, well, why do people not know about this, or why don't they want to choose to go do this? It's because everything has become so instant. So the thing that should fix it should be instant, right? And that's a tough one when you're dealing with someone in pain and you realize, and you say, hey, this is going to take a little bit of work. You may get a little benefit today, but it's going to be exponential beyond that, and we're going to have some ebbs and flows.
You have to invest a little bit for a much better product.
So, but we have this mindset of, well, I can get on my iPad and I can watch this show now. I feel like I'm my dad now when I tell the kids, back in my day we had to watch 3 minutes of commercials several times. That was the way it was, and now the kids are like, why do I got to watch this commercial? Really?
Fast forward to the show.
Forward, exactly. So
skip intro.
That instant gratification has morphed our brains to thinking everything should happen now, fast.
And that's a tempting delusion, right? Like I can understand the desire for that, but the reality is it doesn't exist. The reality is that if we allow ourselves to be seduced by that, we end up in a place that isn't where we thought it was going to be, right? We were sold on the idea that that would be highly gratifying, or that would give me fullness in my stomach, or that would make me healthy. But all of those things are very pale imitations. Humans are geared to go deep. We have to go deep. Again, it's not about the comfort, it's about the happiness. And happiness can come from a comfortable or uncomfortable place. Fundamentally, it comes from a deep place, right? Humans, we are satisfied fundamentally by deep relationships, by a deep nuanced flavor, by feeling challenge in our lives and victory over that, right? It's always that deepness. And maybe one shift that we can introduce to people is that we have to shift away from a superficial life. We can't depend on anybody else to make us happy. We can't depend on marketing to give us satisfaction. And we can't depend upon a superficial, symptom-oriented illness management healthcare approach to make us feel vibrant. It just doesn't exist. It's a myth.
And one of the things we try to communicate is you can do hard things. You may not be able to do that hard thing today.
Love that, yeah.
But you can do hard things, and every day that hard thing will get a little bit easier. And guess what? We got to look for the next hard thing. We have to challenge ourselves, and that's where it's that digging deep. Was it David Goggins? Talks about all going into that. And you can even say, Joe Rogan brings it up a lot on his show about digging deep and challenging yourself. And sometimes when you don't feel like exercising, you show up and you conquer that inner demon that said in your mind, not today. No, I did it today. And, I am getting better. And so,
and there's fun in that. I think that's the thing that people kind of miss. Again, there's marketing against that. It's like, no, you should just stay and watch Netflix. Right? But that's marketing. It's not reality. It doesn't actually make you feel better.
And I think it was made worse by 2 years here recently where they were told, stay inside. It's
another thing not to get me started on.
Watch Tiger King, and we'll get back to you. And so a lot of people fell out of the exercise routine and the healthy eating routines that they were, and they became these like zombies. And it's we got to get out. We got to realize hard things happen in life, and we can handle it, and we can do it, and we can achieve.
Right. Our ancestors all intuitively felt that, or perhaps we're just forced to that. But now we have a lot of distractions. Again, a lot of marketing that's like, no, you don't have to do that. Just look at the shiny thing over here. And it doesn't solve the problem, but it makes you forget about it long enough to quit complaining about the difficulty and to quit digging deep. And then people don't solve problems. They don't find their fulfillment.
Well, and
be that healthcare or otherwise.
Some of the best inventions have happened when someone was forced into something. I didn't grow up on a farm. My dad did, but I was around a lot of kids that did. And I got to tell you, they were some of the most creative people I've ever come across because, a lot of farms, they don't have a lot of money, right?
They have to figure it out.
They have to figure it out. They got to make do with what they have. And so they're doing hard things, and then something else blows up, and oh boy, and what do? They go out into the back, 40, and they found this piece of scrap metal in a spring, and they somehow welded it or clipped it together, and they made the thing work for another 20 years. And my best friend growing up is an engineer and designs, amazing things now. And I always watched him as a kid, and I was like, this guy can build anything. But he had that mindset of, well, we're not going to go buy something.
Right. He wasn't outsourcing.
Right. Exactly.
He was insourcing. He was going deep for it all.
And so I think we all need to look a little bit deeper and do the harder things. Slow down. Our kids don't need to be doing 9 sports. At the same time, we need family time. We need to sit at the table and eat a meal that was prepared there, and we need to do that more so than not. We need to slow down and spend that time as families and communicate and listen to what's going on in our lives, because mentally that's going to be good for everyone. But we also need to slow down and see what's going on in our community. What food's available, that could be better for us. Like you said, we got to slow down.
What's interesting, right? It's layers, and all of this really does pertain to healthcare. We need so much less at the far interventive end of things if we're paying attention to all these other layers that are prior to it.
And those are the layers that matter.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Tony Jeric, everybody. Excuse me.
Jeric Toney. People get it all the time. It happens when you got 2 first names.
Yes. So, Dr. Jeric Toney with Peak Performance. Thanks so much for joining me. Fabulous chat. I look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
Definitely. Look forward to it.